Although web development can be hard, it doesn't need to be hard. One of those things that you can do in order to accelerate your learning process is just add simple skills to your toolkit. One of those skills, one of those essential skills, is actually to create a multi-step form. A multi-step form consists of login and registration, and also validation. Now, I thought to myself that this is the perfect opportunity to show you how to create a multi-step form. Because this is going to be a larger project, I'm going to chop it into pieces. First, we're going to start with a simple landing page, the sign-in and registration page. Then we're going to move on to a sign-in form, then to a registration form, and we're going to see how many episodes I'm actually going to create from this. So, if you're excited, please give this video a like. Also, my name is Norbert and I teach web development. And if you're interested in learning web development, then consider subscribing to the channel and also click that notification bell in order to get notified whenever I post new videos. Also, you're going to get notified when the next video is going to come out. So, hope you're excited for the project, and let me actually now show you the project where I'm just going to remove my face and I'm going to show you the project then. Okay, so this is going to be our landing page for the sign-in and the registration forms. Basically, when the user is going to come to the page, it's going to be first of all greeted with this. Now you can either sign in or register, as I said. So this is going to be the very first thing that we're going to take care of. As you can see, if we hover over a button, then it's going to trigger a background animation, and also if we leave it, it's going to trigger it again. The same thing is going to be for the registration button. It's going to trigger the background animation, and it's going to hide it again if we leave that button. So this is going to be achieved using HTML, CSS, Bootstrap, and JavaScript. But don't even worry about it. There are simple steps that we're going to take. I'm going to also hold your hand and take you through each of these steps. So if you wish to sign in, we're just going to click on the sign in button. This is going to reroute us to our sign in page. From here, we're going to have the possibility to sign in with our name and email. This doesn't have a backend, so we're just going to type in whatever we wish here, and it's going to just work. But you can also see here on the left side, not only that the box is having an animation or is showing us that it is focused, but also the icons. And we're going to achieve this using also JavaScript. Now, if we wish to sign in, we can, as I said, sign in with your user or email and our password. And just by clicking the simple sign in button, we are going to be greeted with a validation. Now, much more about this later on in the next video, what exactly this is going to do. Let me just show you now also the registrations. So we now go through the registration page, and this is going to send us to the registration page where we can enter our credentials. This is also going to have a validation on it. And yeah, we can, after we register, this is, let me just show you, it's going to send you to a confirmation page. And from the confirmation page, we need to enter a code in order to make our button here, which is disabled, to make our button here be enabled again. So if I wish to enter the code, I can only enter numbers, so cannot enter a string or cannot enter letters. We can only enter numbers, and we're also going to have an alert which is going to tell us that we need to have at least 5 numbers. So with 4 it's not enough. Let's add another one, and now the button is going to be enabled again. And after we click verify, then we're going to be greeted with the welcome page. So this is the project. As I said, I'm going to chop it out into multiple portions. It's going to be a far too large project for just one video. Okay, so let's get started with our landing page. For the project, I basically just created a folder. You can call it multi-step form. And within here, we're going to start off with our index.html file. Next up, let's start off with a boilerplate, so shift exclamation mark. And let's give this a title of home. Okay, down in our body. Next up, I'm going to include here a couple of CDNs. As I said, we're going to use Bootstrap, but not only that, we're also going to use Font Awesome for icons. Now, once again, the entire code is down in the description below. Each and every link is down in the description below. So if you get lost or don't understand something, then please check out the documentation. So let me just go down in the body and create an H1 with home. Let me save this and right click, open with live server. So go live or just open with live server. So this is going to open up a new page, and you know what? I'm actually going to put it on a different desktop. Okay, so we got our home page set up. Now let's go to Bootstrap. So let's open a new tab, Bootstrap. Let's open this puppy up. Click on Get Started. And from here, you're going to copy the CDN for the CSS, go back to your code and paste it above the title. And also let's create here comment bootstrap CDN. Okay, I'm going to paste it in here. Now after this, I'm also going to paste in, but down in our body, the JavaScript for Bootstrap, so the JavaScript CDN, which is, you can either copy this to or just copy this bundle right here. So copy this to the clipboard, go back, and please do insert it down before the body tag, before the closing body tag. So let's paste it in here. I'm also going to create here a comment of Bootstrap JS CDN. Okay. Next up, let's also include the Font Awesome CDN, and for this you need to go to a different link. Font Awesome is going to be cdnjs.com, and from here you're going to copy this link right here. So this all main CSS. Once again, it's down in the description, so don't worry about it. Let's paste this one in. Let's also create a comment. Font Awesome. If you never used Font Awesome, it's awesome. Awesome CDN. CDN, and I'm going to paste it in here. Next thing that we need to include is a style sheet. So first of all, let's create it. Let's call this style.css, and down here we're going to include it via a link tag and style.css. Okay, so let's take a look now. Once again, we can close this one up, we can close Bootstrap up, and as you can already see, Bootstrap already has some styles added to our page. Now we could just go here to our title and add a class. And I'm just assuming that you already have a bit of knowledge of Bootstrap. If you don't worry, you just follow along with the classes that I'm going to create. And I'm also going to explain each and every class as I move on in this project. If you wish to learn more about Bootstrap, I have an excellent Bootstrap course, so please check it out if you wish so. So let's create here a display one, and this is basically just going to make an example. It's going to create a much larger image, and also not an image, much larger h1, and also if I type in here text center, that is basically going to push the text to the center of the page. Okay, so this is how Bootstrap works. You just add classes, but this is not what we wish to create. We wish to create a container, as we saw in our finished project. Actually, where's my finished project? There we go. I'm just going to take this project and open it once again here in a separate display. So just that we can have a reference to it. Now, as you can see, this right here is a container. And I'm going to show you how you can create that container. It's basically just a class from Bootstrap. So this right here contains our two sign in and registration forms. Actually, these two are forms, because as soon as I click on this button, a action on the form is going to be executed. But first of all, I want to set the background of our page. So let's go ahead and create within our body our very first tag, which is going to be a main tag. The main tag is actually going to contain those two forms that you just saw. But those two forms are in two separate columns. So first of all, I'm going to create here a row class, which is going to contain two columns. Now this row is also going to have a margin. You know what? I'm not going to use Emmet right now. I'm just going to create this main tag. And in the next step, I'm going to show you how to use Emmet. So let's create class property again, row, then margins auto. I want to have all of the margins for this container set to auto. I'm also going to give it a shadow. This is a shadow class, shadow. And as soon as I do this, but I don't have anything in there, let's still have our h1 home. And as soon as I do this, you're going to see here our main container has a bit of a shadow. So I want to position my container, as you can see here, in the center of the page. And for this, we're going to use CSS. We can also use Bootstrap, but I want to do a couple of different things to it. So let's go into our CSS file. Let's grab onto the main tag, and let's position it first of all relative. Then we're going to assign it a width of 1000 pixels, or 1000 pixels, and a height of 750 pixels. And we're going to tell it that it should be pushed down from the top. You can always see that it has only 1000 pixels, 700 pixels, 750 pixels for the height. And we're going to push it down from the top with 10 viewport heights. And this is basically assuming that this right here is 100 viewport heights, is going to be pushed down 10 viewport heights. This means that down here, we're also going to be left with the rest. So from here to here are 90 viewport heights as a rest. Okay, so that's basically all the styling that we need for our main container right here. Now, I'm still going to go above our main container and I'm going to grab onto the body tag. I'm going to change the background color of the entire body. So for this, I'm going to use a background color as a variable color. Now, if you never used variables in CSS, it's pretty simple. You just need to target the root selector. So hyphen root, and within here, you can create your variables. Now, the first variable that we're going to create is, and the way we create actually also variables is by typing in hyphen hyphen, and then the name of the variable, which in our case will be bg body bg, and then the value of the variable, which in our case is going to be a #ccc, so hexadecimal color. Now you can obviously change this variable. This is why I'm creating a variable. If you wish to change the background color, then you just need to change this color right here. But you will always know that this color will refer to the body color. In order to use a variable, we first of all need to assign it to something, so the property of background color, and then we need to use the var keyword because we're using our variable, and then we're going to insert the variable name that we're going to use, so the body bg, and you can always see that the body has now a gray color. But also our main tag here has a gray color, and we don't want that. We want it to have a white color. Now you can either set the color right in here, or you could use a Bootstrap class. For example, you could use the bg and white background, and it's going to give you a white background now. Now let's continue on adding a couple of classes to our main container. I also wanted to have a padding on the x-axis of 0 because as soon as I use a couple of classes here, it will automatically set a padding to this main container. And in order to have a couple of rounded, let's take a look now. Finish tagging. In order to have these rounded borders, we could use a class for this. We can use the rounded, and you have different values here. I'm going to use the value of 3. It's going to give us 3 pixels of border radius up here, and down here, and down here, and up here. Okay, so this is done. Next up, let's create our 2 columns. As I said, we have a main container which has a class of row, and within this row we can have columns. In order to create a column, you just need to use the column class. I'm going to create 2 divs with a class of column. So I'm going to use Emmet here. Dot means class, then column is the class name, and then I'm going to multiply it by 2. This is basically going to give me 2 divs with a class of column. Let me just move this home in here and also in here. And let's name this sign in, and the other one we're going to name register. Okay, and as soon as we do this, we're going to see we have 2 separate columns. Also, if we inspect, right click, inspect, and we wish to inspect this, you'll see we're going to have in our main 2 columns. So let's go, actually, you know what, I'm going to leave this open. I think it's a much better way to understanding what is happening here. Now, as I said, we're going to have in each column a form that is going to submit our requests of signing in or registering. So let's create our very first form. I'm going to create a form. The action for this form is going to be a route, and this route is going to be sent to a page which is going to have the sign in HTML page. Now this page is going to be in a different folder called pages. So let's create within here, within our project, a different folder called pages. Within pages, I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to call it sign in and .html. Now for this page, I'm going to use exactly the same settings that we have here. So basically I could copy this, paste it in here, leave the body and leave the body as it is, leave the main as it is, leave the columns as it is, and also basically leave everything as it is. But we're going to change the title to sign in. Now, a different problem that we're going to encounter here is the routes to our style, which is no longer just in this level, is going to be 2 levels up and then in our main container. Because basically this file is now located in the pages folder, and it needs to go up and then link up with this style CSS. Okay, so we have this file created. We have our sign in.
We have a sign in file now, HTML file created. Let's go back to our index.html and let's actually check it out. Now we have a sign in HTML created, and we could also open it up. So if I go ahead, right click, open with live server, then it's going to open up. And let me just show you that this is a different file. Let's change this to nothing. We don't need this. We don't need this. And there we go. This is, as you can see, also the title up here is sign in HTML. Okay, now we're going to leave this as it is, but I just wanted to show you where this form, we have it, our index form, is going to be submit. So the action is going to be go ahead and go into the index, into the pages folder, and from here link up to our sign in HTML. And the same thing, so I can actually copy this and paste it down here where we have our registration. Let me do, form, paste it in here where we have our registration, and the path will be now to a different file, which is going to be the register file. So let's go ahead, create in our pages a new file called registration.html. And again, I'm going to do the same thing as we did in our sign in. I'm going to take this, copy it, paste it in here, and there we go. We have now also our registration page. So let's change this to change the title and also the H1 to register. Okay, now I'm going to close up our registration and our sign in page and just going to leave the index.html page open. Next thing that we need for our form is a submission button. So for this, we're going to create a button tag. Then we're going to give it the type of submit. When it has this type of submit, this button is actually going to submit the form. And now for the text, we're going to use sign in. I'm going to actually delete this H1. So let's take a look at our page. There we go. We have our sign in. Now we have our sign in button. Now let's style this button a bit. Let's go ahead and give it a class of btn. And these are once again Bootstrap classes. Then btn info, btn-info. And if you take a look at our button, now it's going to have a blue, it's going to be a blue button with a dark text. Next up, I'm going to give it a shadow class, and it's just going to give it a bit of a shadow underneath the button so the button pops out. And they're going to use another class on the button with this btn large in order to have LG, in order to have a larger type of button. Okay, I'm going to say it's increased its size. Now we could also use, in order to have a more rounded borders on the button, we could use a pill class, so rounded, and exactly as we do it for our main container here, but I'm going to use pill instead. Now what this will do is going to basically create this sort of pill for the button. Now I want the button, as we have it in our finished project, to have a much larger width, so we could use a width 100, W100, on a button, and this class is going to increase the button to 100% of its container. Now, for now, the container is the form, so we could go ahead and style the form a bit. So let's go to our style.css file, and within here, I'm going to grab onto the form tag, and this is going to style all of our forms in our entire project. But we also want this because all of our forms are going to have a width of 330 pixels and a margin set to auto. But because Bootstrap has a bit of a forced margin, I'm going to use important on it. And this is going to override our Bootstrap classes, our default Bootstrap classes for our forms. So let's go ahead, and now we can see that the button is pushed in the center of the page. And if we inspect this, we will see that we are actually in our column, and the column has the form. Okay, and the form is basically also centered, and the button takes up the entire width of the form. Okay, so we have this button done. Now underneath our button, let's go back into our HTML tag, and right underneath our button, we're going to create a H2. Now I'm going to use a bit of Emmet. So H2 dot, we're going to use the class of text center dot again to use the next class, which is going to be display 2, then dot again, text white, and then two curly brackets or braces, because now we're going to use a text in here. I'm going to type in sign in to your account. Okay, and if I hit enter and take a look at our page, nothing's in here because the text is actually white. So I can go over it, and this is actually the trick that I do here. Using JavaScript later on, we're going to tell this text to well, to do nothing, but we're going to tell the background to transform to dark and the button to transform to white. And this is going to show our text because the text is white, and also this icon down here, which we're going to now take care of, and go down here and use an icon from Font Awesome. So let's go ahead and go to Font Awesome. So Font Awesome, this is the main web page. If it's changed because you're watching this video later on, then it doesn't matter because it's always the same way how you search icons in Font Awesome. Now, this is the free version. There's also a paid version. I'm perfectly fine with the free version. So as you wish, you could also use the paid version to have more icons. I think I used here, let me see what kind of icon I used. User lock. So you can type in user, then lock. Hey, that's not that one. User dash lock. And there we go. This is the icon that I use. So click on the icon. You see down here, start using this icon. If it is a pro icon, let me see, is this a pro icon? No. Let me just copy this icon. Click on it. Now it's copied to the clipboard. Sorry about that. And you can now go ahead and paste this icon underneath your button. Now this icon is pretty small for the moment. You can see down here, this small icon. So in order to make it larger, you can either use CSS or you could use on the Font Awesome, here in the classes, a Font Awesome class, which is FA and then dash and then 10x, which is basically going to make it 10 times larger. Here we go. There's our icon now. Now this alignment right here, this is not what we want. What we want is, first of all, to wait. We have, what do I do here? Sorry about that. This H2 should be above the button, so I'm going to hold down Option. I'm on a Mac. You can hold down Alt on a PC. First of all, you need to select this part and then arrows upwards, and it's going to be move upwards. So there we go. We have a text up here, our icon down here. Now let's also change the color of our icon, and for this we're going to use the text. This is a Bootstrap class now. Text white is going to change the color of the icon to white, so you can already see it. And now in order to center everything, just that we have it here, we can now use on our form the classes of display flex. It's basically going to display everything in a flex direction, but flex is normally displayed in a row. So let me go to our page. So now it's displayed in a row. We don't want this. We want it to be displayed in a column. So for this, we're also going to use flex column. Okay, now everything is going to be displayed in a column. I'm using flex or display flex because now I can use justify content with space around and align items and dash items to the center. And what this will do is basically, hey, oh yeah, because I also need to give it the height of 100% of its container. So for the form, now it's taking up 100% of its container, and also, and where's my saying? Okay. And also display the items with space between them. Also up here, 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 and underneath let me go back here. You can see it here much better, underneath our icon. Okay, so it's equal space between each element. And let's go back here. So with this being done, let's go ahead and also create our sign in form. And this is pretty simple. We actually need to do exactly the same thing that we did up here. So I'm just going to copy everything that is after the form, also the button, so the H2, the button, and the icon, and I'm going to paste it. I'm going to delete this register, paste it in our second form. I'm going to change the form action to registration. So if this form is submitted, it should take us to registration. I'm going to change the text to register a new account. I'm going to change the button now to have a btn danger class. It's going to give me a red button. I'm going to change the text of the button to register, and we're going to change down here the icon. Instead of having a user lock, I'm going to have a ID and card. Okay, and the text is not going to be white. We're going to leave it as it was, which is actually dark. So let's take a look. There we go. We have everything that we need here. Now we just need to style our form, and for this, I'm just going to copy the class. So everything that we have here, the class, and also the classes, from our previous form, from the sign-in form to our registration form. And after I do this, you can see everything is now aligned as it should be, excepting
that we need to have here a dark text. So let's go into our text and just going to delete the class of text white, which is going to transform the text back into dark. And now I'm going to change this column to a dark background by adding bg to it. Okay, so now we're going to have a dark background. Basically, as we take a look in our finished project, it's the same thing. Okay, so how can we now make our text appear and our icons appear? And for this, we're going to use a bit of JavaScript. So don't worry, it's nothing complicated. We're going to go underneath this script tag. And we're going to create another script tab. Now, normally I would create separate files or a separate JavaScript file, but I do want this script to only target this right here. So only this file. So the scope of this script is going to be only for this. I could use IDs to identify this form, this button, and so far and so on. But if you wish to move later on up into frameworks, sadly, well, I don't know, is it sadly or is it not sadly? So the main idea of web development or of Web 2.0 was the separation of concerns. This means separate HTML files, separate CSS files, even more separate CSS files by using Sass, which is just awesome, and also separate JavaScript files. And then using modules, you could combine those JavaScript files and so on and so on. But doing that, it somehow landed into a framework, and in frameworks, you do everything in one place. So you do your JavaScript, your CSS, and so on and so on. You could actually also CSS by using React inline styling and so on and so on. So this is going to be a bit of a mix. So this is going to be a bit of a mash, but it's also doing exactly the same thing. If I would create this JavaScript in a separate file, it would just do the same thing. So I'm just going to create it here. So let's use our script tags. And within our script tags, we're now going to create a JavaScript. First of all, I'm going to grab on using a variable const to the buttons. I'm going to do this by using document.query selector all. I'm going to select all of the button tags, button. Now in your project, you now should go to the console. And let's first of all verify, do we have all of button tags to console log buttons, hit save, and you should see your 2 buttons. Now these are in a node list. And what does this mean? Well, if I check the type of buttons, it's going to give me an object. And I wish to loop over this object, so I would need to use, and I actually want to loop over this object using a map method. And for this, we need to transform a bit this object and grabbing onto its keys. So let's create down here a function. Now, usually you would create the function keyword and then the function and then whatever you wish to type in the function and then use, also give the name. And if you wish to use this function, so it's console log func, actually the string, console log the string of func. And now if you go to our console, nothing happens because we didn't initiate this function. If you wish to initiate the function, you could do it either underneath the function, so name, this is the function name, okay, so the function is just a keyword, the name is the name of the function, and we're using now the function's name in order to initialize it. And if you initialize it and we go into our console log, you will see func, okay. But this is one way of doing it. I will show you another way. Basically, I'm going to delete this. I'm going to delete the name, and I could just also delete this, and I could just wrap everything. Oh, sorry, didn't mean to do that. I could just wrap everything into 2 parentheses, so into a parenthesis, and then open and close parentheses again. And what this will do is exactly the same thing. So you can see here, func again. If I change it to function, the string, it's executing. So what I just created is a self-executing function. You just have to use the function keyword, wrap it into parentheses, and open and close parentheses right after it, and it is going to create the function without the name and automatically initialize it. Okay, so pretty straightforward. Now I'm going to leave all of these console logs in order for you to see it. So basically, this function is initialized as soon as the page loads. Now, as soon as the page loads, I want to grab onto these buttons and map over them. So I cannot do buttons.map and then using here a callback function. Let's just console log the name of map. I cannot do this because the type button is not a function. So what this means is we cannot map over an object. What what we could do is grab them from this object to its keys. So we're going to use the object and dot keys, and within here we're going to pass in from which object we wish to use those keys. We're going to use it from our buttons object. Okay, and now this should work. It should console log me map 2 times because we have 2 buttons. If I would create here another button, then we should see, okay, because we have now 3 buttons. Okay, let's Control Z, my favorite command in all of web development and every programming language. Control Z. So my favorite key shortcut. So we can now map or loop over these buttons and we can do something with them. And what I wish to do is going to grab onto the keys, or to the key, to each key. In the callback function, we're going to grab onto each key, and let's just say each button. Actually, the second one doesn't matter. And instead of console logging, I'm going to use here a function on blur on focus. And this is going to do something, this function. What this function will do is, as soon as let me just show you on a finished project. On focus means, or well, actually it's on mouse in and on mouse out. Let me change this. On mouse over, on mouse over and out. In our finished project, if we take a look, if we go with our mouse over the button, it's going to do something. If we leave the button, it's going to do something else. This is basically what we wish to achieve. And for this, we're going to use some properties, some event listeners. Now, in order to use an event listener, you need to grab onto an element, in our case, a button, and assign an event listener to it. So add event listener and so on and so on, but I'm not going to use that and then specify the event that you're going to listen to, but I'm going to use directly the on mouse over functionality. And not only that I'm going to use the on mouse over functionality, I'm also going to use the on mouse leave functionality, which is basically tracking or listening to the event when my mouse, let me show you once again, when my mouse leaves that specific element. So both of them are going to pack into this function. So let me copy the name, create a function keyword, paste it in right here. And this is also going to have a variable or a argument that is going to, this function is going to take in an argument. And this argument will be whatever element would be passed here. So I could just call it element, would be passed into this function. Then on that element, I'm going to add a on mouse over event listener, and this is going to be assigned to a callback function, so a arrow function. This is going to take in the event. Now the event itself will then be pushed forward into another function, and this function will be the class toggle, class toggler, and this is also going to take in that event. So for this, we also need to create this class toggler function. I know it looks a bit complicated, but it's going to be pretty simple. I'm going to take you through each step. So let's create another function, class toggler, and this class toggler takes in an event, and whatever that event is, so the event dot target, whatever event is targeted, then it's going to take its class list and it's going to toggle a class on it, and that class will be btn light. And let me close this one up. And it also the event dot target dot parent element, and then again the parent element. And this is going to be a bit too complicated. So how can I explain this much simpler? Let's just do this first of all. So this class toggler function, whatever is going to be passed in here, so whatever event is going to be passed in here is going to be taken here. It's going to be targeted, and if it has a class, then the class on it will be toggled. The toggle means it's going to be added and removed from it. Then this function is going to be passed up here, which is going to have a event listener. This event listener listens to whatever element is passed in this function, which is up here. Now we took our object, we're looping over it and over each key, and now I can use this. So from this object, each key, I'm going to take each key and I'm going to pass it into the on mouse over and out function. The mouse over and out function will take that element, is going to add an event listener of mouse over, and also a event listener, another one here, of mouse on mouse and leave. I'm missing E here. Mouse on mouse leave. And it's going to call upon this class again, which is going to toggle the button. So let's see if this works. And it does. So let me show you what is happening here. Now, how can I make this much simpler? Let me console log, first of all, the event here. So console log the E. If I go in here, then it's logging mouse event is true, blah, 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 blah. I just enter the mouse. Okay. When I'm going to leave the mouse, let me show you again. Let's console log also the event in the next function, which is listening for a leave. So entering, leaving, entering, leaving, entering, leaving, entering, leaving. So for each button, we're going to have a listen for a enter and a leave. And when this happens, then you can actually take now out. Well, let me just comment out this console logs. Again, the code is down in the description. Please check it out if you mess something up and it doesn't work. Then this event is going to be passed down here to this function, the class toggler. This class toggler is going to take this event, pass it down here. It's going to look for the target. Now, what exactly are we targeting? If I console log now down here, again, this is just pass down, 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 down. And I'm console logging now the event.target. Then if I enter, it's going to tell me that we just targeted this button. Also, when I'm leaving the button, it's targeting the button again. Okay, because it's listening for the enter and the exit. And when it enters, it's adding. And now I can show you how it's adding. I can basically take this button. So you're going to see the button here. You can see its classes, class, btn, btn info, shadow, btn large, rounded pill. It doesn't have a btn light class, but if I enter, so just keep your eyes here. If I enter, it's going to have the btn light class. If I exit, the class is going to be removed. So this is exactly as like adding a class and removing a class. You can use the add and remove property on classes. Okay, so if I enter, it has the class. If I exit, it doesn't have the class. So the same thing, let's not go a step further. I'm going to now use the parent element. Not btn. Oh my god, what am I doing? Okay, parent element. So basically, when I'm entering now, it's not going to target the button, but let's do here the console. It's going to target this button's parent, and this button is in a form. So the parent of the button is a form. So it's now targeting the form. But we don't want to target the form. We want to go one level further up, which if you take a look in our HTML, so each button is in a form. You can see how it's opening and closing classes. And the parent element of the button is the form, and the parent element would be the column. So I could basically go down here and use parent again. So just copy the parent and parent, whatever. Why can't they just do parent and times two parents? So the parent is the column, as you can see. Okay, so this column right here. Now I can use down here this property now. Actually, just grab this, paste it down here, use the parent on it. So after the e.target.parent class toggle, and we are going to toggle now a bg dark class, not button, but bg. Okay, this means that we're going to add and remove the class of dark. So if I enter, there we go. The class of bg dark is going to be added to the parent element of this button, which is the column. And if I leave, that the class will be removed. Exactly the same thing here. It's toggling the class, and because the class already exists, so the bg dark class on the second column, because the background is dark, then it's first of all going to be removed, and if I leave, it's going to be added. So pretty simple stuff, isn't it? And that's pretty much it for Emmet. Are we done with the video? I think we're done. Yep, that's pretty much it for this very first step of creating the home page for the register and login part. So, and also if you click on the buttons, that it should send you to the sign in page. Yay! And if you go back and click the registration page, it should send you to the registration page. So this being said, we are done. So thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this start of the project. If you did, please leave a like Also, if you have any kind of questions or suggestions, leave them down in the description, in the comment section below, not in the description. The entire code for this is down in the description below. And please subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell, and stay cool, stay calm, stay happy, and catch you on the flip side. Bye-bye.